world.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a special news bulletin from Twisted World.
What is up, Twisted World fam? We are back. I'm with my boys, as always, Cody and Andy. What up, guys?
Yo.
Your boy.
Yay. Hey, we appreciate all the love, everything going on out there, getting messages. And I got a few direct from some individuals that saw our advertising on Facebook.
You got more?
But it was like direct to me. And I'm like, hey, Twisted World posted this. Aaron didn't, but apparently
Well, they must have dug in.
Yeah, they figured it out.
You got some
And they were
hate
just
mail?
like, hey, you know, is this stuff real? And I was like, yeah, I mean, most of it, sure. Like, that's the whole point of this, right? We're trying to figure that out. And with that, I mean, we got a pretty heavy topic today, guys. There's a lot going on in the world right now, specifically in Eastern Europe, right? So we're going to talk about pretty much Putin and Russia.
And maybe Ukraine.
Yeah, we're going to throw Ukraine in there. Just as the understanding that, of course, Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, is currently waging war on the Ukraine. So I think before we get into that, we should probably do a little background on Putin. You guys good with that?
Yeah.
Did you guys know he was in the KGB?
I did know
That
that.
sounds about right.
Yeah.
Second in command at one point, correct?
He was high up, yeah. And he was, first off, do you know what KGB stands for? I was like trying to figure it out without looking it up. And I can't pronounce it. Can
I don't
you?
know. No, I just know they wait for no one.
Can you try to?
Come et gos udravinami bestopostany.
That's what KGB stands for, people.
Yeah.
Basically, the KGB is a mix of, an easiest way to put it, kind of like the CIA and NSA.
How does it translate? Do we know what that translates to?
No, you want to look that up? 'Cause
I can. Yeah. Because I
did
mean,
not.
I would call it the KGB too, but we also use the acronyms, right? We CIA, FBI.
Right. But ours is Central
DHS.
Intelligence.
You know?
Yeah. Central Intelligence Agency, National Security Agency.
Well, that's
Theirs
because
is
that's how we pronounce it, right? But
Comitet goes to, but I'm not going to do it. But yeah, I'd be curious to know what it translates to. But basically, for all of our listeners out there, it is their version of deep intelligence.
It's Committee for State Security.
Committee for State Security. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. So that's what KGB stands for. Fantastic. So he was part of the KGB in 1975, right out of college. He was a college student and got recruited. 1980, somewhere around there, he attended an elite foreign intelligence institute to better his skills in intelligence. And this is important because we're going to talk about some stuff later that could lead into the fact that he became such a prominent person in the intelligence world. I mean, everything from tech, and he really dove deep into like hacking phones. And he later, after attending this intelligence institute, got stationed in East Germany. Now, keep in mind, this is post-World War II Germany, split. The wall hadn't come down yet. And Germany, per the Treaty of Versailles, was, you know, they were really stripped of their military forces, right? They weren't allowed to have a whole lot. So, of course, because of what they did in World War II. And so he partnered with a group of East Germans called the Stasi, which was basically the German secret police. And he went on to train Westerners, which I'm guessing is Western Germany. When it, in all the articles I read, it just kept saying Westerners, but he was in East Germany. So he's training up Westerners to have them infiltrate and steal tech and secrets. Because at this point, Western Germany was becoming allies with us, and so on and so forth, right? So we were setting up bases. You know, we currently now have multiple bases in Germany still. And so later, General Horst Bohm, head of the Stasi, complained to Russian General Vladimir Shurikov stating that Putin was recruiting East German reservists who had gone into civilian life. So he's like rising up this army, right? And funny thing is, not too long after, Bohm committed suicide. Okay, so the head of the Stasi guy, he decides to commit suicide. I'm going to go on a limb and probably say that this general of the Russian army probably put a little pressure on this guy. But who knows? Nobody really knows, right? Horst Yemlich said in a brief telephone interview that the KGB was interested in procuring Western technology. Okay, so clearly they're going after Western technology. Little fun fact about General Shurikov. Today, he is the general director over the government underneath Putin. So,
well, I mean, is there really a government underneath Putin? Let's be real. If you watch his national security message that he puts,
are like homies though.
I don't know, dude. Have you seen? Okay,
this guy goes and rats on Putin. He's like, "Hey, Putin did this and this," and the guy's like,
"Let's be real. Russia is not the Soviet Union anymore." Right? The Russia's not the Soviet Union
You're
anymore.
going to end up like Epstein.
He wants it to be that. He wants it to be this big, scary looking power, but he's really not. I think his biggest threat is the threat of nuclear weapons or that kind of military action.
They do have a fair amount, and they do have a large army as far as manpower. I mean, they do.
Well, not anymore. Apparently 7,000 have died in Ukraine. So that's more than we've lost.
Is that current?
That is current numbers. Estimated by our intelligence in the United States is they've lost 7,000.
Like, send in the cannon fodder.
Keep in mind, that's more than we lost in 20 years in Afghanistan, and has now eclipsed the number that we lost in Iwo Jima, which is one of the biggest ones we've had. So,
I mean, he's losing. There is speculation that he did like grab just a bunch of boys and young men, like Cody's age, and send them.
No, so what? There's speculation, but what we know is that he had sent his entire army in, and now is getting to the point where they're stretched thin that they're reaching out to like Syria and other places to hire basically mercenaries or other troops from other proxy states that they have to fight this war.
Well, I'm sure there's some Middle East countries that would probably back him up. I mean, just saying. It's important to know that Putin is a college-educated man and has the equivalent of what we know as a PhD. So Putin is not dumb. Okay, secret intelligence, PhD. Though he doesn't look the smartest when he's on TV riding his horseback with no shirt on. But hey, that's what narcissists do, right? He did serve under Stalin. And even though Putin never put him down, never said anything negative, he always took this stance that he believed Mother Russia should have its voice. And Stalin did not believe it. So he has gone on record to say that. So that would denote democracy, right? Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But in many, many, many interviews over his 10-year span of president, because he became president in 2012. Yeah. So
wow, it feels longer.
It does. Well, he was the prime minister for a long time too.
Okay, because I was like, I mean, that's a long time ago, but not really.
Right.
That's crazy.
It's like prime minister, president. I mean,
and if I understand correctly, they're like forever presidents, correct? Unless they get a coup or something like that, they're there. They don't have to be reelected. Essentially, I know there's a lot of corruption and collusion around the idea that he packed boxes to win.
Well, he was almost handed the position. I was looking at it like the guy that was president. His whole crew loved Putin, so they were like, "We're going to make sure you're president." However, that happened. Hey,
yeah, there's a conspiracy there that he rigged
sure
that
Russia's
election.
Not the only one that rigs elections. I'm just saying. Anyway, so now let's
a Biden pun?
Fast forward to today and what's going on. So Russia has attacked Ukraine, but the question is why?
For Russia, it's a why not. They've done this before.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. It's political. And okay, let's look at.
So you believe 100% it's political?
Yep.
Okay.
Counting the current term that we're in, go back 3 terms. When has he attacked other lands, countries?
For sure. I mean, he took Crimea in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
And he took Syria in 2008 or 2011.
When the fall of the Soviet Union happened, so the USSR, Soviet Union fell. Okay. The West, So everything from us to Europe and everybody came swooping over and like went into all these surrounding countries and said, hey, come be a part of NATO. Doesn't seem like a bad idea, right? Like, hey, come
Not
join us.
everything's a part of NATO, correct? The Baltic States? I don't believe they are. The ones that line
But I
Russia?
think they're overseen by,
I think if they were, we would be at war. I think because they're not a part of the EU and not a part of an EU being the European Union, right? And not being a part of NATO. Like, I think they want to be a part of NATO now, but they're not.
Well, and we're gonna get a little bit into NATO, but in June of 2021, there was a Geneva summit. Do you guys know this?
No.
Where Russia and the U.S. met. Biden and Putin got together. Putin says, these are my demands. One, you're going to freeze NATO membership. Freeze it. Okay? Because he sees all these countries like signing up.
So he's
like, hey, I
saying,
wanna be
freeze
part of
it.
your
I don't
cool
want
club.
anybody new to come.
Right. That
Okay.
was demand number one. Demand number two, NATO withdraw all troops from Eastern Europe borders.
It's not going to happen.
Of course not. But you got to understand
NATO
that,
is there because of what happened in Europe last time.
but these are important demands that will reflect something later. And I'm just saying
It's like he's laying a framework, little
yeah.
groundwork for like,
Or-
oh, hey, I need you to do this so that.
Or he feels like people are coming up over him and
well,
he
okay.
doesn't want to be oppressed. Right.
If Biden conceded to these requests, right, and he locked down NATO and he didn't want anybody new and he wanted all these troops pulled out, any engagement to do otherwise would be considered a like we're prompting him to the conflict.
Right. But
Right now, he has no reason for it.
And I agree with you. I'm going to say this third one, though, why they didn't agree to it, at least make some kind of deal with him on this one, I don't know. The third one, that the U.S. specifically vow not to protect Eastern Europe allies specifically with nuclear weapons. He just asked that if you're going to protect them, you just don't use nuclear weapons. That was his third request. And they laughed at him. And they were like, no, absolutely not.
I think they should be able to defend themselves.
With nuclear weapons? He's not using them. He's basically saying, hey, if I go into attack, you just
Don't
can't use
nuke me.
nuclear. Don't nuke me.
Yeah. Reasonable.
I would think that's fair.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fair.
You're talking
No.
about weapons that absolutely not only
And
just
used for thermonuclear war.
he's like, yes,
Listen, no.
nuke 'em.
You are misunderstanding the point of a nuclear weapon. It is not intended to be used. It is intended for a deterrent.
It's fear.
We think a man on a high castle.
I get it, but he's asking.
No.
He walks into the Geneva summit.
I
and
understand
says,
what he's
hey,
doing.
Mr. President, if I were to attack, say Ukraine, do not launch nuclear weapons on me. No, I don't agree. Okay. This will jump back to something later.
That's not like an impromptu. If Biden had come out and said, "We will nuke you if you walk into Ukraine," he wouldn't have walked into Ukraine. Nuclear weapons are a deterrent.
You're
Right?
probably right.
Right.
I mean, he has some too, but he doesn't have any that. Well, he could probably reach us. I'm guessing. Right.
Well, now they've got this new. Apparently, they've got this camouflage technology on some missiles they launched in like 2019 that supposedly we can't detect.
Google
I'm
and
sure
see
it's
if
fixed.
Russia has surface-to-air rockets or
They do.
ballistic
No,
missiles that
they
can
do.
reach the U.S.
Yeah, they do.
They can
have-
reach Alaska. I know that, but can they reach the continental main body of the U.S.?
They wouldn't hit us. It wouldn't happen.
Well, the
It would-
thing about it's like you back a dog into a corner, eventually it's going to bite.
Well, 100%. So right now he's got
Right.
nothing to lose. Right. We'll get into that a little bit more, I'm sure, as we start talking about the actual war. But he's got nothing to lose at this point. The question is at what point do we get involved to where it's a conflict? Because here's the deal: if we get involved, if we do something like a no-fly zone, it's World War III.
So while Cody's looking that up, let's bring up our first main thought, and that is the Great Reset. Now, at first, when I said that, I was like, okay, somebody's reaching, but here's the deal. In June of 2020, 1 year before the Geneva summit with Russia and U.S. in Geneva by the World Economic Forum, they presented their ideas of what most people are calling the Great Reset. Now, here's the details behind it that I've heard of the Great Reset. I didn't know these details. Keep in mind, Russia absolutely refused. Okay, so that's got to be known because you got to hear what this Great Reset is basically what was discussed. So the idea was originally spawned in 2008 when the Great Recession was taking place, right? Recession around the world, US was hit heavy. They bring this idea up. Governments around the world would basically become just one stakeholder in what they're calling a multi-stakeholder model of global convergence or governance. Eric Gleckman from the University of Massachusetts said the report was the most comprehensive proposal for redesigning global governance since the formulation of the United Nations during the World War II. Keep in mind, the UN was first formed based on democracy. Okay. We all know that, right? The UN came together and said, hey, we don't want war anymore. We're going to come together. We're all going to stand here in a level of democracy. We're going to hash it out, blah, blah, blah. Okay. When you look at the other stakeholders of the multi-stakeholder model, here are some of the companies or corporations that make up that list. Saudi Aramco, which is oil, Shell, oil, Chevron, oil, BP, oil, Unilever, food, Coca-Cola, Nestle, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Moderna.
The food, tech, oil, and pharmaceuticals.
So what this plan that they are trying to implement is stating that these corporations that are listed as the multi-stakeholders, okay, some of the largest companies in the world in these, as Andy put it, different divisions. Did you find out? Do they have anything that can reach us?
Yeah, they do. And they have more nukes than us. And
nice.
It just depends on if, like, in the matter of like defending against this nuclear attack, depends on how many were fired at us. So if it's an all-out nuclear attack,
just barrage,
we will only be able to defend against a few of them. And
ours are just more sophisticated. Our technology is more advanced than theirs.
So they can only hit the West Coast, right?
No, they can hit all of us. They can hit the whole shebang. And if they like rain down hellfire,
nuclear bomb shelter.
We're okay.
If they rain down hellfire, we'd only be able to defend against like a minimal amount of it. We only have defenses capable of defending against like rogue countries like North Korea or like we only have like just a little bit of defense.
But not Russia.
No, not against Russia.
Yeah,
no.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So here's this Great Reset. Also, it was titled Multi-Stakeholder Global Governance, right? So what it states is these companies would be basically heads of the world, and they would decide global policies.
There's no way the world's agreeing with this.
Oh,
I'm gonna mind you.
By the way,
90% of this is American companies.
3 out of the 5 largest economies, us being one, are backing this idea.
100%. Are you talking about the Great Reset?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, dude. So many people are on board with this thing.
Listen,
it's stupid. It's stupid to believe that everybody in the world's going to agree that we're all going to be able to sit around the table and sing kumbaya.
Dude,
and
these companies,
everybody in the world doesn't have to agree. Only the leaders have to agree.
But okay, so 1 year before he meets with Biden in Geneva, this takes place, and Russia's like, absolutely not. No. You're not gonna. We are a sovereign country. We are Mother Russia. We are not going to have these corporations telling us how we're going to run things. But multiple powers, including the U.S., currently stand behind this idea. It is pressing as we speak. They were supposed to meet actually last month. I think they're meeting again in the summer. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But basically, these stakeholders, these corporations, the government will take a back seat. The governments will take a back seat, and these corporations will basically run the show worldwide, making policies, running the globe as these multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar corporations who have, I was talking to my wife last night because she's like, I don't understand. Like, is this a bad thing? I'm like, yes, listen, these people don't wave a flag. They don't have honor and respect and love for their country.
But it's about the bottom line.
The one thing you got to give Putin,
it's not a constitutional thing.
Every other sentence Putin says, Mother Russia. He loves his country. Okay? These people don't give a rat's tail about the U.S., Europe, Asia. They do not care. Okay? China's the other one. So it's China and Russia that are really not feeling this, right? But over here in the West, we're all getting in it.
Right. Kumbaya. Sitting around the table.
Let's do it.
I don't blame China for that. I mean, they've built up like a really strong economy over there. They're doing great. Why would they sign on to something like that?
Right?
Yeah.
Well, especially you're telling their leaders.
Yeah.
Like these are
no.
some prideful people. You're
Like-
telling them, you're going to tell them what to do.
Why would I throw away what I've worked like an entire lifetime for?
Because when you read all the fine print, it's exactly that. The governments are basically just going to step down. Here you go. Which by the way, the UN would no longer at that point be constituted as a democracy, which is what it was founded on, which is why I mentioned it earlier.
But see, I think the UN isn't all that different. It's a bunch of people from, some of them from states that shouldn't even be like Russia should not be a part of the UN Security Council or any of that right now. It's a bunch of people sitting around a table talking kumbaya about how the things are in the world are going to get better when bad's going to be bad and
so now we're going to let greedy corporations take over.
I don't agree with any of it. I think they're all stupid. Can we throw them all in some area and just nuke them?
Well, and by the way, I didn't know this one. In 2019, these corporations actually took up a place in the UN. They are officially a part of the UN in preparation for this model. So it's already like...
It's in motion.
It's in motion.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. Like,
it's terrifying.
A little bit.
Because there's nothing you can do about it. It's just going to happen.
2 of those oil companies, by the way, so a year later, Russia says, hey, I want these 3 things. Nope, cool. 8 months later, he attacked Ukraine. 2 of these oil companies have backed out of contracts with Russia. And I believe it was BP and Shell.
Yes.
With that being said, market analysts who are analyzing long-term effect, one, all of you out there, we are all experiencing ridiculous gas prices, and they continue to climb. Is it going to stop? Who knows? But the one thing that multiple analysts, not just one, but multiple, stated was that these 2 particular that bailed out of Russia, and with the fear and all this stuff saying that, oh, it's because of Russia gas prices are going up, which we'll talk about in a minute. That doesn't make sense.
No,
it doesn't at all when you look deeper into it.
Slightly, but no, was not. It's not Russia's fault.
Well, it's not Russia's fault.
Not completely.
And even then, without Russia's oil, again, we'll hit that 2%. Yeah, 2%.
2%.
I saw 2%. I was like, so we get 98% from other sources. What's really going on?
Yeah.
So Russia, these guys bail out. Well, guess what? Analysts are saying, oh, their stock prices are going to go through the roof. Okay. These are 2 of the big dogs on this panel of people that are going to be running the world. And they just happen to be the 2 that go, we're going to bail out of Russia. Russia's attacking Ukraine. Like, these analysts are like, if you're a corporation and all you care about is your shareholders, Russia has contracts with you. They buy oil, right? So in turn, you should be non-biased. Multiple analysts have all said it.
I mean, we're talking about
not a single other one pulled out.
Inhumane.
Chevron did not. Nobody else has said anything. It's just these 2 were like immediate, like, we're out.
Okay, McDonald's pulled out. 871 locations. At the end of the day,
McDonald's was probably killing Russians. I'm sure Putin's happy about that. Let's be real. Like, goodbye, Big Mac. You got to go, bro.
You have an ethical dilemma there. I understand it's about stakeholders and all that, but to say that Shell pulled out because they were going to make more money, I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to be
I think it cuts them off at the knees.
For lack of better terms, devil's advocate here, because if you're Putin, you love your country. 2 years ago, you were told, hey, you're going to be a part of this new model, and you're basically going to give up all rights, and we're going to control you. That's one. Absolutely not. Like, you're proud. He says it over and over. He loves his country as we love ours, right? We love the US of A. These corporations don't love the US. They don't love Russia. They don't love anybody. They don't give a rat's tail about anybody but themselves. And they're going to, so Russia's like, nope. Right? Year rolls by. He goes up to the Geneva Convention and he says, hey, these are my demands. And I, again, looking back on it, freeze NATO membership. Okay. It makes sense because if they just keep bringing these people in, they're easier to fold into the new model, right? He doesn't want to be the lone soldier. He doesn't want to be standing there like the whole other world, rest of the world is conformed and they're basically going to fire on me. I'm just saying, it looks a little crazy. NATO withdrawing the troops. At the end of the day, I get it. Like we need to defend these countries, but at the same time, if this other stuff really is going to be implemented, and he's just taking a stance to protect what he believed was all Mother Russia. I mean, Ukraine once was part of that entire union. So, I know he's had numerous talks with the president of the Ukraine. Wasn't there a fun fact about the president of Ukraine, by the way? Off
Yeah.
topic?
So, I mean, I'm like I was saying earlier, I'm sure I'm going to butcher the story a little bit, but I think he's a comedian or a former comedian, an actor. I think he did stand up and he did a bunch of movies, but one of the movies he did was called Servant of the People. And I want to say it was in like 2016, where he's basically just a normal average day guy.
Have you guys seen this?
That has,
Cody, can we
I
get this
have
on the
not. It's probably in their language, so it would be. I'd have to pull it up and see it. But he's basically just like a goofy comedian type guy riding a bike to work. But he ends up creating a party called Servant of the People and becomes president through the course of the movie. Well, I guess shortly after that, there was a meme going around where they wanted to, basically to him to be a president, and then he ended up getting
Cody was sending out memes for the Ukraine president, bro.
No, and I even did some research. So they're
hooking your bro up.
2019,
Vlad.
My boy Vlad.
In 2019, there was a poll that if he had run, if they wanted to see a poll, and it was like an overwhelming number of people said that they would vote for him if he did. I think he announced at the end of 2019 that he would run, and he won by a landslide at 78%.
We put an actor into the presidency, so
a couple times.
Oh,
I mean, Trump was an actor too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's more of a real estate mogul, but he's a real estate mogul / TV.
But Reagan was an actual actor. I've seen his movie.
He was, yeah.
He was pretty good.
Yeah.
He had a strong shot at that. But, he was a great president too, right? So,
yeah. So just interesting that he, not only that, but in 2019, he announced he was going to run for president, created his own party called Servant of the People, and then won that election at 78% of the vote. So
people like entertainers.
Landslide. But outside of that, he's not a comedian
I was
anymore.
thinking you should run for president.
Bro, I don't want to be president.
You should.
Yeah.
The problem is you just press the nuke button. We've already discovered that. You'd be
No, you're misunderstanding me.
Nuke them.
Having a nuke doesn't mean that I have to use it. Although we are the only country to drop a bomb like that, right? So that strength is what allowed us to lead the world. Not that I want to kill people, but the idea is that if we have nukes and I'm willing and are able to protect the countries that are underneath us or are allies with us with that nuke. For instance, we talk about 2016. The one thing about, I'm going to go back. The thing about Putin is right now you're kind of setting it up that this is all as a result of this council.
And I just want to make it clear. I'm not saying Putin is a good guy.
No, I'm not saying that.
I do believe that Putin loves his country.
He does. And I have some...
And he will do whatever in his perception is to protect his country.
Okay. So I'm going to go about, we're going on like 3 or 4 different topics.
Yeah.
Putin did look up to Stalin.
Cody loves Putin. So.
I know he's a Russian, so I'm sure he has his own opinions on Stalin, but he did look up to Stalin because of what Stalin did for Mother Russia. And even though we all look at Stalin as like this terrible guy, they did a poll in 2019.
Yeah.
And overwhelmingly, people approved of Stalin. Like 70 to 80% of Russians approved of Stalin because of what he did for Mother Russia.
Yeah.
Right. And so Putin aspires to that.
Right.
Now, he may not like that guy, but he aspires to that level of Mother Russia.
He loves Stalin. He just, when in certain interviews, he just leans more on the belief that the country should have a voice, which is democracy.
I don't know if he wants them to have democracy.
He doesn't point towards communism. As far as his overall, how he wants things.
I think it's a perception thing. Maybe.
Possible.
I don't think he allows people to have a voice. Have you seen the national security
narcissist?
The national security messages they're having right now? I mean, his security councils, mind you, none of them are military, right? They're standing there like shaking, reading these forms because he has forced all of them to say things. One guy slips up and says that Ukraine is sovereign, right? And in the process of calling it,
he literally gets the wrong thing on a podcast, and the NSA comes in and takes you out. What's the difference?
Let's do it. I would love that kind of attention.
We're still a democracy, right?
I would still love that kind of attention. Well, again, that's a conspiracy.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Well, no, but I'm just saying, you can be a democracy and be corrupt, just like the United States is.
Absolutely.
But you can't claim that you want it to be a democracy if you're the one corrupting it.
Sure, you can. But he's doing that right now.
But he's arguing that that's what he truly wants. It's not what he truly wants if in the background he's the one backstabbing people. I can say
Right.
all day that I'm a
But the U.S. claims we want to be a democracy, and then we want to hand over rights to evil corporations.
but again, that's all hearsay. I don't believe that the president's going and sitting down and having meetings with these Nike and saying, "You good? You take over."
Nike wasn't on the list.
Nike was on the list,
Nike's
right?
not on the list. No,
I thought Nike was on.
what?
I was like,
hey, but
maybe I read that wrong.
Pfizer and
Oh, okay.
Moderna is.
Oh yeah.
I read Nestle.
Yeah, you know that.
Somehow,
Nestle.
somehow the cookie company's on here, but not Nike.
Yeah, I mean they make the Crunch Bar, so apparently they get to run the world.
So-
I'm cool with Nestle,
Let me
but Pfizer, Moderna, I don't know about Facebook.
let me go back
Can you
and
imagine
well, it's
Zuckerberg
not.
and
It's
his
Meta
lizard?
now. Okay,
Yeah, whatever.
he's going to take over the metaverse.
Yeah, Lizard Man's gonna run the world. That's gonna be fantastic.
Let me finish my thought though.
Okay.
One of the things that is a big kind of leaning point on that is that he's reacting to what happened 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
I don't know that I completely go along with that line of logic because it was 2016 that he bombed Syria and took over a good portion of Syria. It was before that he took Crimea. Was it 2014?
2014, he took
Right?
Crimea. Right.
The only time he didn't do anything or any attacking was during the 4 years of Trump's presidency because Trump strengthened NATO and basically told him that he would go fly a kite.
Can you look at the actual date timeframes of the USSR from enacting? Because all of
it
these
ended in 89.
I know it
I
ended.
believe that's when
when
NATO
did it
was-
start though. NATO.
I think NATO was established in 89 as well. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to pull it up too.
Yeah, that'd be good to know.
But the point I'm trying to make is he has a pattern of it. And what happens is what I'm seeing, and what you can see is it looks like he attacks when we're at our weakest.
okay, but again, who is he attacking? Countries that once were all part of a union that bail out and become part of something that stands against him. That's all I'm saying.
they're border states. He doesn't want to feel like he's being attacked. Yeah, I get it.
It's at this point, it's perception. Like, here you are, Mother Russia. You're the leader of this country. These countries were once part of the
But
same union as
Why
you,
attack when he attacked?
and they like bailed the squad.
Regardless, okay, let's imagine, because it's not just about him being afraid of all these people getting Western
I saw
influence.
multiple news reports that say he did try to handle this differently multiple times.
How?
He met with the Ukraine president. I don't
And
know.
told him to surrender.
I'm
and
not saying Putin's a good guy.
he asked him. He asked him to
I'm gonna
change
go
his
kick it with
constitution.
Mr. Homie Putin.
No,
like,
no. He asked him to
hey,
change
bro,
his
Can we ride
constitution.
horseback with no shirts on together? Is that cool? Or can we Photoshop that in?
What?
Like all of us riding on horses next to Putin?
No, stop.
There's tons of pictures on No, it's great.
I have him riding a bear.
I did see that one. I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty dope.
Yeah.
Can we get like different
that's-
animals too? Like, I get like a unicorn, and Andy gets what do Irish people ride? I don't know. Did you get those dates?
Yeah. So it was formed in 1922 and
Okay.
disbanded in 1991. So 69 years.
69 years.
Almost to the
close.
date. 4 days off the date.
69 years. These countries were part of this union. And then the USSR broke up and they joined, majority, not all, joined NATO,
Through both world wars, Mike.
of which NATO has always had this presence against Russia.
But that's why NATO was established, because of what happened.
But Russia's a sovereign country. Nobody owns them. You can't tell them what to do. Yet
You absolutely can't.
yet
But I can
these
create a fence and say, "Don't cross my fence."
You're right. But
That's what NATO is.
when you start being a bully, and
How are we a bully? How is NATO
I
a
don't
bully?
think we are being a bully. But here's the thing.
That's
Again,
the point of NATO.
with this new model, which was 2 years ago, 2020 June, and they go to him and they're like, "You're gonna be a part of this," and he says, "No, absolutely not. I'm not."
You're talking about a proxy council that somehow has an association with the UN. I don't think
But
this
he
is
sees this model potentially going through, and if it does, the whole globe, but him and possibly China, will be like, "Yeah, we're all in."
so
we're
half the
all-
globe. China
Yeah,
and
right,
China
they
and
take
Russia
us
are
over,
half the
right.
globe, right? So,
But you got a lot of strong military
but how
powers.
is that any
all part of this.
different than the Western ideology already?
Well,
It's already different than the way that the communism, China and Russia think.
And the other thing is, they can start like really stripping him of resources. Because
He did that to himself. He's already done that now. His economy's completely trashed. The ruble's worth nothing.
I get it. You hate the guy, but listen,
No. It's not about hate.
I'm
It's
just
about
trying
his
to look at it
actions.
from a larger picture.
I
here.
believed that he thought
it's
he was
what-
going to be able to walk in and get the same results that he got when he did Syria and when he did Crimea.
So
And it's not happened because Ukraine is actually holding up.
let's talk about the gas thing real quick, because we touched on it a little bit, and now I'm on it here. And again, everybody out there is experiencing this. I just went to Costco. Did you see how much it is now?
Yeah, $5.23 yesterday is when I filled up.
The heck?
In my
It was
minivan,
like 3 weeks ago.
my
wasn't it?
minivan cut off at $100. Didn't even fill up. Cut off at $100.
That's great. So you got small cylinder engines getting cut off.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the guys that drive big V8s and
I have
10s?
I have a diesel truck.
Oh, that's right, you do.
Yeah, I have to pull my card out more than once to fill it up.
Thank you for my hybrid.
Yeah, $155.
I'm debating on getting a Tesla soon. I'm just like,
You
screw it.
should.
I'm not going to do this anymore.
Do it.
It's just going to be worth
The
it.
problem is in
Elon's cool,
California.
man. I like Elon.
In
Yeah.
California, is it much cheaper?
What?
Like
What?
PG&E feels
Plug-in-
like it's
I know,
just
right?
as much as gas is.
Your PG&E bill's
We have an
$10,000 a month.
We have a hybrid vehicle that plugs in at my house, but that with all of the other bills that I've got and my AC and heater and all, it ain't cheap.
How much is your PG&E bill with that car plugged in?
I can't
Did you
tell
notice
you.
a difference when
I did notice a difference when it was plugged in, but I don't know off the top of my head. But my bill runs
$100, $200
my
difference? Just a car. I'm just curious
well,
what these cars pull.
I don't know what's happened in 2020, but I can tell you my bill has increased significantly. I have probably a
wanna know what it is.
$200 increase just since COVID has started. Monthly, mind you.
A lot of great states in the middle of this country, aren't you?
Yeah.
We get nickel and dime.
But
so to the crude oil issue. Okay. So Russia crude oil and petroleum product exports to the U.S. represent 8% of all imported oil and less than 2% of the U.S. supply. So
I saw this and I was like, wait.
well, and this is on multiple.
Why did we hold off for so long?
I saw Bloomberg reported on this, and they reported it as if they were trying to justify gas prices by this statistic.
I know 2% seems small, but when you think about the millions of gallons that we're buying, so I would assume that let's imagine that we're at a $2
jump in 3 weeks.
Let's imagine we're at a $2 average,
right?
Country, we don't ever see that in California, but like $2 average across the country, that's what it's at. If we were to cut off 2%,
yeah,
I would imagine that there'd be a jump, just because, but not $2, not $2. I understand that, but I would imagine there's a jump. I think you've got
war kind of always does that a little bit.
I think you've got a mix of inflation in there.
Crazy. I think there's something,
and there's some serious padding. Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and then you've got the idea that we're not going to make our own oil.
Yeah.
So, and they're when you see the messaging coming from our administration or anything like that, the message is that we need to focus on green energy. But yet our gas in California is $6-7 a gallon. You're like, what in the world is happening? How many barrels do we buy in a single day? Assuming before we cut off,
on average, every day. The United States, we pump 369 million gallons of gas a day.
Okay, so that's what the consumer pumps.
Correct.
Okay, so that doesn't tell us how many barrels of gas we buy or crude oil.
396. How much?
369 million barrels is what's pumped on average.
369 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Times 2, they're making an extra $738 million a day.
Who
off
is?
that $2 jump? What?
Oh, yeah.
The government.
Well,
I mean,
keep
let's keep it real. Are you getting any of that?
No, but
$738 million a day.
We're having to replace the 2% we lost from Russia somewhere else, right? So we're having to go to some other source to get that oil because we're buying what we need.
2%,
but it has to be replaced, and it may be more expensive than what we were paying Russia.
Yeah, I don't. It's not adding up. I'm sorry. It just
doesn't
make
add up.
sense. And the reality is, at the end of the day, is when you start looking at states like Alabama went from, and so much larger than we did here in California. They went from an average of $1.69 a gallon. They are right now at $4.43.
Yeah. So like my grandmother lives in Oklahoma, and she was like texting
one
me,
of the lowest income states in the nation. These guys don't have that kind of money.
No, she was texting me. It was like 211. I don't know, months ago when my gas was like 4 something. Right, hers was like.
She lives in Alabama,
Oklahoma. Right.
Oh, okay, so
and it was like 2 something, and I was like jealous, right? Because she went to Sam's Club just like I did to fill the truck. But she had texted me. It's been a few weeks, right when the whole thing kind of started, and it was like already at 3 something. And so I imagine she's at the 4 something, and their income. I mean, I'm hurting out here. And our incomes in California are a lot higher than other states.
A lot higher. Again, Alabama is one of the lowest income earning states, and they jumped from an average of 169 to 443.
That's ridiculous.
$3 a gallon to people that do not make anywhere near what we do here in the state.
Yeah.
And so it just doesn't justify their reasoning. Like it doesn't, I just can't see it. You got to give me more. You got to say, hey, you know.
Well, it's a mix of everything, right?
Something
so
else.
We know that. Has anybody seen the clip from Trump when they're doing the election or they're in the campaigning? And he gets up and he talks about how have you guys enjoyed gas at like 211 or 210? Yeah.
Fantastic.
He's like, well, if Biden gets voted in, and this is, mind you, like 2019, before Biden's president, this is like during the campaigning. If Biden becomes president, barrels are going to go up to like $100 a barrel and you're going to be spending $6, $7, $8, $9 a gallon. And I'm like, I mean,
you didn't get to be a billionaire without being smart. With
the funniest thing I heard was someone say Trump said a lot of crazy, off the wall, ridiculous things. But when an administration comes in and they start hitting the ridiculous mark, it's a little eerie, right? Like it is. Like, I'm not saying he's a prophet, but the idea that he got up and he basically said, this is what's going to happen. And now here we are.
He knows business and he knows financials. And that's what he told us was going to happen.
He knows people.
Yeah.
So the idea is that there's this idea that we have an administration that is completely out of touch.
Can I just touch on Trump? I don't want to get into presidents and Republican and Democrats and all that, but just so we're all on the same page, Trump was not on board with that model, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure.
But Biden is.
We know that?
Oh, yeah. You can, all this stuff's on. Hey, listeners, check it out. The Great Reset. Go to their page. You'll see all the supporters. You'll see all the information. You can dig a little deeper. There's a ton of articles that are for it. I mean, there's this guy, I forgot to write his name down, but he's some PhD guy, and he wrote this whole article, and CNN blasted it, NBC blasted it, and it's all of this, but in a positive light of how this will be great for the world. I don't see it. You're going to let evil corporations tell us what to do? They have no love for the U.S. I'm just saying. They don't. They have love for the dollar. Now let's talk about the most crazy one right now. So Russia and China recently have come out and said that the Ukraine has bioweapons labs funded by the U.S. That's their claims. There's no proof. We don't know. I do know, looking back, that there was a point where Ukraine had bioweapons labs and they were told to
dissolve them.
Yeah, can you look up that date, by the way? We were talking about it yesterday, but I couldn't find the actual date.
I don't. Yeah, so the claim
is
like
early 2000, I think, right?
They are biological labs, and I was watching an interview or an article or something like this, but they
like
do
CDC type stuff.
No, they do. They exist, and they deal with pathogens and things like anthrax and those types of things to try to get rid of them. The main reason that they were established and the U.S. did come in and take over them was to resolve and was it resolve or do they were supposed to accomplish something in the offset of what happened with the USS or the SSR, the Soviet Union.
So first and foremost, Biological Weapons Convention was formed in 1972 and basically banning the development, production, acquisition, transfer, stockpiling, and use of biological weapons. The most toxic gas that exists right now in the world is something called purified botulinum, and it is 3 million more times the power of sarin. And if any of y'all out there have ever watched The Rock, that was the gas that those military guys stole and took over Alcatraz, and we're going to launch it on San Francisco, the whole works, blah, blah, blah. And sarin is pretty deadly. 1 gram of this toxin, just 1 gram. So if you've got a food scale at home, put something on it till you get 1 gram. 1 gram of this toxin can kill 10 million people. Now, there's no absolute proof that the Ukraine has an active biological weapons lab. Definitely no proof that one is funded by the U.S. But for discussion purposes, let's just look at Putin. What did Putin do for a majority of his life when he got out of college before he became president or prime minister?
I don't know. He was training Germany or Germans.
Who was he a part of?
KGB.
KGB.
Okay. So we believe that our CIA knows just about anything and everything. I would not
We hope
put it
so.
past the KGB and the intelligence of this individual who was an intelligence officer. What if, hypothetically, he caught wind? Because he said he was going to attack Ukraine last year. 8 months rolls by and he doesn't attack. Maybe he caught some intelligence that this lab exists. And he's like, okay, these guys got bioweapons. They launched 2 of these things with a few kilograms, and they could take out the entire population of Russia.
It's propaganda. Now, I believe the labs exist.
Possibly.
The history
But that's the
from what I've
purpose
read.
of what we do is to,
Yeah.
is there a probability that even 1% that he's accurate?
No.
100%?
Yeah. What is more likely? Here's the thing. What is more likely is the fact that we know he's not truthful on a national scale. He's saying that he didn't. Yeah, I'm not attacking Russia or Ukraine, and you're like full scale bombing. We got video. He's that guy, right? The guy that lies on national TV.
He didn't want to be prevented, so he says, "I'm doing military."
Yeah.
What did he say?
Exercises.
Military exercises.
Yeah.
Walks up to the border, and then now I'm attacking. Like he's
No, he didn't say. Well, he did. He did
It was
announce he was
strategy.
attacking like 2 a.m. But
strategy.
so
we play strategy games a lot, right?
historically, what we know.
Y'all be ganging up on people when we play gang. I'm just saying, like, hey, check us out, and then boom, Andy annihilates everybody. I mean, the same concept, right? I'm just going to do some exercises.
It's
get to the
propaganda.
border, boom.
It's propaganda. And the reason why I think it's propaganda, and I can lay the foundation for it. So I believe that there are labs.
Mm-hmm.
Soviet Union had labs in Ukraine. When the Soviet Union dissolved and Ukraine became sovereign, the Americans came in to help basically destabilize those, take them down,
Right.
whatever. I think the intention for him bringing him up here is I think his intention is to use biological weapons. And if we can create a narrative where it's
You think he's going to use them?
100%. I think
wow.
he's getting put into a corner. And when he gets put into a corner, he's bombing theaters. He's bombing civilians.
Yeah.
Because if you can scare people enough, okay, there's how many movies have you watched that are Vikings or whatever, right? When a war is starting to feel like it's being lost, they'll turn and start attacking the women and children because they're barbarians. And the idea is that if I can scare you or I can, take something from you,
So you're
I've
calling
won.
Putin a barbarian,
100%.
even though he's highly intelligent.
I don't care how intelligent you are. You can be an intelligent barbarian. Doesn't mean anything. It just means that you have rage. And your idea is they're not going in sophisticated, because if they were, Zelensky would be dead. Right? They're not the US. They're not going in on this we talk about the KGB, but they're not like secretly like sneaking into the country and accomplishing some big task. If that were true, they'd just gone in, killed Zelensky, got out, and they would have won the war before it started. Right? They're going in and they're just bombing.
So this was actually
attacking.
This request by the World Health Organization to Ukraine was just March of 2020, when they were advised to destroy high-threat pathogens housed in the country's public health laboratories and potential bioweapons labs.
Yes.
Like, this wasn't that long ago.
Nope. But the idea was to come in and resolve those, probably because of rising tensions that have happened over the last few years.
Well, the WHO said that these pathogens are very deadly pathogens.
Yep. And at this point now,
And that's how bioweapons are made.
because the country's
through
being
pathogens.
taken over, they should get them out.
Well, they probably shouldn't have them at all.
Well, they've got 2020, they're trying to resolve it.
Okay, but the WHO's saying that these pathogens could absolutely just destroy
But you don't believe,
people, and
but you don't believe, not that they,
and it says
they're not
potential
talking-
bioweapons lab. So the Ukraine clearly had something at one point. Is there a potential that they still have it?
I don't believe it was Ukraine's.
Have what exactly?
You
Again,
don't
sorry.
believe it was the Ukraine's?
No, I believe it was the Soviet Union's. I think these are resolved from that. Now we are currently working on, I think, regardless of what you want to think, I think this is all propaganda so that they can use biological weapons and blame it on America.
And then we join the new model.
Because no, here's the deal. If they say it's us and we react because they've now used biological weapons, we have preempted war, not them.
Right. And I agree with you. So Russia's at a point where Putin, even being an intelligent man, is still being backed into a corner. right? I mean, you got the model he turned down, and his request got turned down. So here he is. He probably feels like he's standing alone on this globe, right? I mean, essentially.
Well, okay, Russia doesn't like to look weak. Putin doesn't like to look weak. So
no,
if he
it's
backs
Mother
off,
Russia.
if he backs off now with the idea that he'd
Cody, can
lost
we get an
7,000 soldiers,
Have you been working on your Russian accent?
No.
my wife's
Like,
really good at that.
Maybe
No. I'm not.
Julia's very good at a Russian accent.
maybe we can soundbite her and throw
Yeah,
it
she
in.
does. She does a very good one.
Do
I'm
like Mother
terrible at
Russia.
accents.
Yeah,
But
I'm not gonna
she
try.
she does. Of all her accents, I think Russian's her best. I'm over here. I can't even think of one in my
You
head.
should totally soundbite her and throw it in. That would
Yeah.
be cool.
Well, we'll see.
Something cool.
This is my thing. You know, I don't want to share it with her.
Wow.
She's gonna. She's also like an
Julia,
episode
he doesn't
behind.
mean that.
She's an episode behind, so she actually won't hear this until later.
So
A week later.
yeah.
Weeks later.
By
I'm
then,
like,
the opportunity will
I
be
don't
long gone.
remember saying that.
So all of my conclusion stuff we pretty much touched on. I mean, the reality is that he was presented with an idea that corporations should have the power over governments across the globe. He turned it down. He is narcissistic. We know that much. And he is a president of a country that.
Did you do your
believes-
research on like a Russian website?
What? Why?
Because you're all up in Putin's corner.
No,
I think
I'm
your
trying-
boy Putin.
I'm trying
is
to
what
play
you're right
advocate
now.
here because the reality is
I don't
there's
need you to be an
there's
advocate.
two sides to every story, right? I mean,
Is there?
it's like
Yes.
your kids come. Oh, yes.
Actions speak louder than words.
You get one kid, hey, she did, and you're like, I
Bro.
know there's more to this story.
Okay, but if I start,
like, I'm just
if we start
saying.
marching into Mexico, it's not Mexico's fault.
Okay, but right now our country is in turmoil itself.
What are you talking about?
But that's what he's doing. Border country. He's like, he just starts attacking. He can't blame it on other people.
Well, for 69 years they belonged to Russia, so I'm just saying. You know,
Well,
he's just,
belong
maybe-
is different than own.
maybe 90%
or
of that.
original.
It's like you loan somebody a hoodie, and then 2 years you go back and you're like, "Can I get that hoodie?" You're like, "Hey, I'm sovereign now. You can't get it."
Okay,
Like,
so then does
Give
that
my hoodie, punk,
justify?
before I break in your door and go get it?
Does that justify Mexico coming into Texas or California?
What do you mean?
Historically, before the United States existed, those were owned by them.
Yeah, but we own that fair and square. That was a whole nother issue.
Ukraine
in itself.
people believe that they
And then
originated from the same city as Russia, but that they
Listen,
are their own people and their own
Ukraine-
sovereign nation.
Everything Ukraine had was Russian, and then they bail out and they go join this other gang called NATO. And
Yep.
Putin's like, "Bro, you can't. You just don't get jumped out like that."
Yeah, but Putin's coming from a place that it is Russia. Ukraine
be-
is not a thing.
Wouldn't it be kind of like if Texas declared its independence and then the federal government came back and did again? That'd be
But
kind of
it-
what's happening right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, Texas was its own country at some point.
That's what I mean. Is that if Texas declared its independence and then
But here's the
seceded from
difference.
the nation,
Texas did exist. Ukraine has not always been a part of Russia. Not always.
But
And they believe themselves to have been the origin of Russian and Ukraine is from the same city.
do you know
which
that
is in Ukraine?
Ukraine was technically a third world country when they joined the USSR? Russia supported them.
So
Okay, they created them, gave them what they, and then they bail out and they go join NATO, which
after
Russia has always stood against.
after the breakdown of the SSR, I understand
Right?
that.
I get it. But again, it's like this poor, helpless little country. We're starving. Russia's like, cool. We will feed you. We will give you. We will give. We will this. We will teach you.
Don't treat Ukraine or Russia like there's some humanitarian like whatever.
They got issues. We all
They
got
wanted
issues.
land and they wanted power.
I just like the fact that
the
Putin,
moment that broke down, Ukraine's like, deuces, I'm going to go over here because these guys are nicer.
at the end of the day, I don't agree with this great reset and this model. And Putin said, I'm not for it. And our president said, yeah, that sounds great. Let's rock.
I want to see where you see that. I agree. I
Let's
think
look it
Biden
up.
probably said it. You keep saying that, but where's the proof that Biden has been like, I'm full support? That dude's all about control. He ain't giving us that. He ain't giving us that for some great reset.
Listen, Biden doesn't even know what color shoes he's wearing.
True,
right
he's
now.
a
Let's
houseplant,
keep
but
it real.
Nonetheless, his agenda has been very progressive.
looking at
he
her
ain't trying to
hair.
give that up.
Let's see. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
He wants to see that
Behind.
Biden full supports the Great Reset.
Great reset. I know we're involved in it for sure. I don't know if specifically Biden. I know a
Yeah.
lot of
Now, I believe that there may be a lot of people in a specific party that are for it, but I'd be hard pressed to find something that says our president is.
Those Republicans with their freaking their
I don't know, but look, you just get all these things. Why it works? Why you should be for it? It's like
right, and the internet never lies.
Goes and goes and goes and goes.
I'm going to go back to Cody's point about Texas.
Okay.
The point there is, and I agree with you. The idea would be though that the United States would say Texas has never been Texas. It's never existed on its own. That's what Russia's trying to say, is that Ukraine is not Ukraine. It has always been Russia. It has always been. It's us.
Yeah.
It's not its own. Texas was Texas before it was a part of the United States, just like Ukraine was.
I mean, Texas was a part of Mexico.
It was, but it wasn't called Texas.
Right.
Texas, what I'm saying is Texas, when its establishment was established before the United States, before it was a part of the United States. It was its own country kind of by itself. It did not become Texas when it joined the United States. Have you gone and looked at the history of that? So they were their own country. Texas was its own entity before it joined the United States. Just like every other state.
Alamo.
Right? It's all about the Alamo. So they were their own. They joined the United States. If they were to leave, and if I'm comparing apples to apples with the Russian-Ukraine situation, it would be the United States coming in, marching into Texas going, Texas never existed. This has always been the United States.
Well, I'm talking about if they did it today. Like if Texas were to leave today.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying, though, is that in order to compare it to Russia, the United States would have to walk in and go, this has always been the United States. It's never been Texas.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what he believes. So he's saying that Ukraine is Russia. It's not, we're not stealing something. This has always been ours. It's like, I watched a little clip of two brothers, and the one brother, like the younger brother's in a room, and the older brother walks in, and one of the shirts says Russia, and the other one the younger brother says Ukraine, and the Ukraine's sitting in the red room, and the older brother walks in, he goes, that's a nice room. And the younger brother's like, yeah. He goes, it used to be mine. He goes, yeah. He goes, I think I want it back. And he goes, this is my room. It's since I've been born. This is you weren't here. This is my room now. And he goes, no, I think I want it back. And it's just this funny idea that they're just trying to, when you watch how he talks, he literally creams one of his security advisors for saying that Ukraine is sovereign or was ever sovereign.
Biden talked about the multi-stakeholder capitalism model on his campaign.
You're talking about the new Green Deal?
No.
Kind of thing?
That's what this thing is called. Multi-stakeholder capitalism model, where these corporations take precedence over governments. He talked about it in his campaign and how he's for it. Right here. First thing to pop up. I'm just saying.
You've been searching for like the last 10 minutes. And it's the first thing to pop up?
Because I typed the wrong thing in. I typed US and because it was lowercase, it was us, I guess. But so I replaced it with Biden, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, boom, boom. Stakeholder capitalism. Meet the presidential politics, Forbes magazine.
Anyways, what were you saying,
The
Cody?
Biden administration is looking to convert lofty principles on corporate purposes into hard legislation. The multi-stakeholder capitalism model is the designed way that we should all be looking and changing how we form.
Kumbaya.
I'm just like, anybody else looking this stuff up?
See, this is
crazy.
This is why this is happening.
And the EU is apparently behind it as well.
This is why this is happening, though.
The big economies.
What's happening right now with Putin and Ukraine is happening because we look weak. We look like we believe that the world and everybody around is going to sit around a table, hold hands, and just get along.
I just don't think Putin wants to sit around and let this stuff go down without his presence being known. And I think he's trying
okay, maybe you're
get
right.
a stakehold in back in what he has, because if he got Eastern
I don't
Europe
think it's
back,
that deep.
The EU is going to be like,
I don't think it's that
NATO's
deep. I think what it is right now is he looks at us and he goes, they're not going to stop me.
Yeah, well, I mean, he is narcissistic. We all believe that, right?
But every time he's attacked,
bareback,
right? Every time he's attacked, he has done it because he believes he won't be stopped. And you know what? He ain't wrong. This is the third time. He took a big chunk off Ukraine a couple of years back when he took Crimea, right? So he's not going to stop. And I'll be honest with you, China's sitting here waiting to see how this whole thing unfolds, because they're going to do the same thing to Taiwan.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing.
For sure. I'm sure.
Honestly, China backing Russia, This is a win-win for them. Because if Russia loses, everything they're sanctioned into the ground. Their economy is completely dead. They need China to buy them
China
stuff
has like
from them.
1 million soldiers in its army too.
But outside of that, economy-wise, they don't have the strongest economy.
Dude, China's army outnumbers the United States. It's incredible.
I think
so does their population by
I think it outnumbers a majority of the large countries' armies combined.
Yeah,
it has
does.
well over 1 million people.
It has so many more soldiers than us. It's
Like-
crazy.
And we're not even close.
Yeah.
And England, Europe definitely isn't either. Look, you want to talk about propaganda? Look at this. This is on everything about this model. It says that it guarantees to deliver value to customers, invest in employees, deal ethically and fairly with suppliers. Now, this is worldwide. Support the communities in which they work and generate long-term value for shareholders who provide the capital that allows companies to invest, grow, and innovate. That's their belief and stance behind this new model, allowing corporations to run us. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, right?
It's this whole like conflict that's been going on. I mean, it's been like, it's just crazy to think about like all the, things that are happening, like why it's happening, what's going on. But knowing what's actually going on has been the toughest part about this whole conflict.
Yeah.
Because there's so much disinformation. It's insane. Like,
and there's propaganda from both sides.
Yeah.
Ukraine and Russia both are like, oh, this is what's happening. There's 1 million people died. And you're like, yeah.
I've never seen it this bad before. Like I've seen stuff where like, oh, it turned out to be fake. But there are just so many things that are fake and or real and then proposed as not fake.
Yeah.
So many people calling it real or not real.
Look at our own news.
You don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not even like looking at news, just any sort of post anywhere. Like not even like big news outlets. What I'm saying is
you're
like
talking about people or individuals.
Small news outlets, memes even. And you're like, well, and you don't obviously look at memes and go, oh, that's probably true. But I'm just saying there's just so many things floating around that you can't.
That's the sad part. You may not, but there are probably a larger majority that look at those things and find some truth in it because
memes
they don't have the capacity to.
Memes are usually founded in some form of truth. Something has happened, and now we're going to make a meme about it.
But that's what propaganda. So propaganda in itself is designed to convert the masses. Not everyone, but the majority. Yeah. And that's what it's doing.
It's also to weaken ideologies, right? So if we weaken Russia by saying there's 14,000 people dead on Russia's side, it makes them look weak. It could cause maybe a coup or the oligarchs out in Russia to overtake Putin, and then therefore that's been resolved.
Right.
So have that many died? I don't know. Right now, our intelligence is saying around 7,000. That's a ton of dudes.
Well, and that's the only reason I'm trying to play the other side. I'm not saying, please, listeners, I do not support Putin. Okay, the guy is still a tyrannical leader. But at the end of the day, there are always two sides to every story, and I just can't sit back again looking at the fact that they tried to pressure him in 2020 into this model because he was only one of a handful. I think him, China, and I saw one others that are like, absolutely not. And they tried to press him and he's like, no. And he probably has some foresight to see that there's this thing coming where pretty much the entire world, except for him and maybe China and one other country, are going to be against him.
The biggest
kind of isolates him.
The biggest argument against that is this is not a one-time occurrence. This is a repeated offense. This guy has repeatedly done this,
and he's done
in
it
the last 4 terms.
He's done it to only countries that were part of Mother Russia
that he believes are.
It's not like he went
sovereign
out
Russia
and attacked anybody else.
Well,
he didn't.
No, he's doing what has always happened, and he's trying to push his border
because in his perception,
border states.
They belong to Russia. Their stuff belongs to Russia.
But that doesn't justify it.
I get it, but that's his perception.
Yes.
All I'm saying is if he was really trying to take on the world, he would just all out start launching war. He would go join with China and say, hey, let's take on Japan and just start obliterating Taiwan.
Yeah, any empire state has always felt that way. I get it. China took Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
They pulled out and took it immediately. It's about an empire. So the justification, it's not founded.
It's his belief that it belongs to them.
Right.
That's it. That's why he does what he does. Now, again, like the stuff with the bioweapons,
Yeah,
Probably
you won't
a
know, right?
lot of-
I think it's I'm just
Well,
based
you'll
on my
know when
opinion is I think he's pushed in a
A few
corner.
million people just start dropping.
Well, yeah, but I think he's being pushed into a corner now to where he and his team are, because they're the ones that reported this, mind you. It was Russia that reported the biological labs. It was not the United States.
Right. It was Russia and China.
Russia and China reported that there were biological labs. Why? To what intent?
To make it okay what he's doing, possibly.
We're not
If
fighting.
he's making it up, but what if he sent out intelligence agents, which he was trained to train for many years, and they found some dirt? What if?
But they'd have found him a long time ago.
That's what I'm saying.
This didn't come out
Cody, help
on
me
its
out here.
own.
Do you think that there's even a small probability that that's true? Keeping in mind in 2020, the WHO,
What's true? That they exist?
that they have bioweapons labs.
I agree that they exist.
Bioweapons labs?
Biological labs.
No.
Yes.
We're just talking about biological weapons.
No, the report was that there are biological labs that have the capacity to be used as weapons. That was the report from Russia. That they're working on things like anthrax and some other things to be used that could potentially be used in war. But see, America, they're trying to pull us. They're trying to do this because I think they're going to use those weapons or use weapons of that sort in the battlefield and then say that it was America or Ukraine that used them. That's my guess. I'm not denying the existence of lab.
I mean, come on, Cody, help me out here. Is there a probability that
there's bioweapons in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Possible, but unlikely.
I agree. Very unlikely. But
Yeah.
is there even a 1% chance?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Always.
Well,
But no one's denying the fact that I believe that there are to be labs.
But
My intent.
if that 1% is accurate, then they are technically breaking laws, right?
True. And then
1972,
Russia.
the
Whose
Biological
laws?
Weapons Convention banned the development, production, acquisition, transfer, stockpiling, and use of biological weapons backed by NATO.
It's a war crime.
They are part of NATO.
So is attacking civilians.
You can.
Hey, well, we do. I mean, we don't attack
that are
civilians.
stepping up as soldiers.
Yeah, of a
No.
renegade.
Hospitals, theaters where people are being housed in humanitarian efforts, cutting off Red Cross, like all of those things are war crimes. These are not people fighting back. They're
Right.
attacking women and children and hospitals. There was a theater attacked with people that were trying to seek refuge. So those are all war crimes.
Yeah.
It's also like a total barbarian way of fighting a war.
Right. Did we do any of that in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Not on civilians.
We didn't bomb when we launched. When
Specifically
when
targeting
President
civilians.
Bush got on the air and he said, "Shock and all, you have X amount of time to get out." Now you're talking about people that may not have the means to get out. What are they supposed to do? We launched full ballistic missiles,
but you're
like over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like
they weren't not targeted.
I thought it was cool. I was like, "Yeah, U.S." And then looking back on it, like
those were people.
Intent.
Those were people. Those were people.
Yeah. Terrorists that killed Americans.
Well, not all of them.
So all of those were terrorists? No.
If
those
Putin,
were families that couldn't get out.
If Putin launched a nuke on someone, we would go to war with them. I
think
assume
everybody would go to war.
Everybody would go to war. Well, we'll see. Everybody would go to war with them. If he launched a nuke,
yeah.
right?
This whole world would be bad. We would be done.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say though is we didn't target civilians. He is targeting civilians.
I think he's just launching.
No,
he specifically said, "I'm targeting civilians."
They're targeting civilian towns that are not occupied by soldiers. They're targeting.
They're taking ground. They're occupying ground. And
but they're shifting. They can't get into any of the major cities. The major cities are all being held by Ukrainians, and I think it shocked them. Right? They're losing on that.
And right out the gate, Ukraine already said we're going to arm our civilians. Therefore, he's attacking everything. He's just like, you know what? Obliterate or get out.
You cannot target a hospital that has people in it being healed and say we're targeting. They're targeting civilians. It's you need to do your research on this.
We blew up all kinds of stuff when we
but
launched
we
shock and awe
targeting civilians.
Well, you always
were targeting
to get
encampments that had resistance.
No, we targeted towns that had tons of civilians
and buildings.
Okay,
that's why he said, "I give you."
I understand collateral damage.
Like 24 hours.
No.
24 hours.
Yeah,
a whole family's just supposed to jump out. Let's run.
But he gave a warning.
3,000 miles.
Yeah.
Okay. Go and look where Putin's given a warning before he bombed a hospital.
He gave a warning in June 2021. He said, "I'm going to attack Ukraine." They had 8 months to prepare. 8 months. He said, I'm going to do it. He
You're
said,
crazy. You're crazy if you're comparing this to Afghanistan.
all I'm saying is
they attacked and knocked down the towers. Angles. We retaliate with whatever we retaliate with the Afghan and the Iraqi wars.
Listen,
we preemptively say we're going to bomb the heck out of people to get out.
June 16th,
every town we bombed, every town we bombed.
Biden. He said, "Hey, these are my demands." No, I'm just saying. He said, "These are my demands." They laughed. He said, "Cool, I'm going to attack Ukraine." That was June 16th, 2021.
I promise you, if we had said that we would retaliate in the instance that he did that, he would not have done it.
You're probably right. Yeah, but Biden didn't.
But here's the thing.
He
did not go in attacking civilians. It's only once his numbers started to get diminished and he started to look like he was going to lose. We're 4 weeks into it now. The civilian attacks just started 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
4 weeks?
I believe 4. I think we're on week 4 right now. So he just recently in the last 2 weeks started attacking civilians.
Again, Putin's a nutcase. Hands down. The whole point of why we do what we do is to look a little deeper into stuff and just say, is there probability and possibility that there's something that is driving him that's more than just, I'm Putin, I'm the man, I'm going to take the Ukraine. Is there a probability that there's more to it? Deeper, possibly darker?
No.
You don't think that the press of the model or any of this stuff
again, your press of the model, you're just going back 2 years ago. You're not going back to the fact that he's done this 4 other times or 3 other times. This is not a new thing for him. We can try to justify it away by saying some new thing has happened, but the result of that new thing is the same thing that happened before. He's doing exactly what he did. Every time he thinks he can get away with it, he attempts to do it.
Right. Okay.
This is why I think we need a crazy person like Trump at the top to scare the heck out of people.
Right. My finger's on the button, bro. I'll press it. But Trump was hanging out with Putin.
I don't care.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Listen, I don't care.
He was.
He's scared.
So were they cool?
Well, I think he was afraid.
Maybe Putin really isn't what we see him as, and Trump saw the real Putin? Is that possible?
I think Trump was the bigger man in the room. And I think there was a respect earned because no one really knew what was going to go down. What am I looking at?
All right. So, listeners, I just showed a video to Cody, and let me back it up for Andy. This was initial tests, just FYI, of sarin on sheep. And keep in mind, this chemical that's supposedly circulating out there is 3 million times stronger than sarin. And so this was a drop of sarin gas in a room with 2 sheep, and you saw what it did. Just
start tweaking.
Done.
Yeah.
Donezo. And this other one is 3 million times. That's not good.
What does it
do? Okay.
What is it? What
does it do?
It breaks down your insides. You breathe it in.
You melt from the inside out.
Right.
Melt?
Gross.
Yeah. Basically, so it's a chemical.
Temperature rises to the boiling point of your organs?
I think it eats away.
Your body just starts breaking down. I mean,
coming
blood
apart.
Starts coming out of orifices, and your neurological system shuts down. And again, this other one being 3 million times stronger, 1 gram of it can kill 10 million people. So they clearly know this stuff exists because they've studied it, because there's all kinds of studies on it. So if it's out there, that's not good. They're putting it up above nuclear weapons.
So what do you think happens?
With wind and everything?
What do you think happens next?
I don't know.
Because I agree. I think this can go on for years. He's going to go
drink his vodka orange juice and kick back and go,
the problem is
he may have lost.
He won't be able to do that. He won't be able to get it into the country. So
into Russia?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, he probably has a stack of...
You think the Russian people don't like Putin? Can you look up that?
I don't.
Is that
I
think it's just like here. I think
they do.
I think there's a resistance,
and they say, "Oh yeah,
yeah." I think there's a resistance, but I saw somebody was like a group of people that were against him. They're they're going to overthrow the government. It's only 70,000 people. I'm like, that's not going to do it.
What's the population of Russia? I meant to look that up.
It's not very much. Remember we talked about the GDP, right? Talking about the GDP of the country was only $1.5 trillion before this whole thing happened.
Did talk about that,
right? Which is the same GDP as Florida.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not. The problem is when we think of Russia, we think of former Russia, which was this world power. I don't think of them as a world power anymore.
It's 144.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's more than I thought. Actually, it's half of us. That's more than I thought.
It's half the United States, and they're 100 times bigger in size as far as the land is concerned.
Well, it's mostly wasteland.
Right.
It is.
But
Yeah.
that land belonged to America a long time ago. That was the United States land. So we're just gonna go back and we're gonna go back and take what was ours.
I did see one cool thing, and this could have something to do with it. I don't know, but apparently Ukraine, like their soils, apparently can refine uranium like really well. And so when the USSR split, and Russia didn't have that ability anymore because Ukraine was now sovereign, right? They were their own country, so they didn't have. So it's possible they're like, hey, we can't create any more uranium without the Ukraine because most of our land is wasteland and sub-zero, and
That doesn't make sense because Ukraine used to be a part of Russia, so they should have other lands that are similar to that.
you know, I don't know.
I don't know.
California's talked about breaking off too, so
They should. I talked about
I'm
this
just
a little
saying.
while ago. If our policies out here get any worse, I don't think
need to
Texas, drill
Texas-
holes
I don't think
every
Texas
2
or any-
feet. and
or
just
any of the, like if California broke off, New York broke off, Texas would be like, thank God. Maybe no.
I don't know.
If you're a Texan out there, shoot us a message. We'd be curious to know what you think. If California and New York broke off from the United States of America and became their own,
Would
country.
they though?
We'd have to immediately establish like so many like different trade deals with them because
I mean, they're
California-
coastal.
California is like the number one exporter of like, it has the most cows of like dairy of like any other state.
really?
Yeah, it's by just such a huge margin. It's incredible.
Not even
What?
that. That's the entire West Coast, right? Well, with the exception of say Washington and Oregon.
Well,
but
and
yeah.
did you know, believe it or not, the world's top wines, not that any of us drink wine, but a lot of people do, come out of the Napa Sonoma region.
Yeah.
Like a majority of it.
Loads.
I used to think it was Italy, and it's not. Italy's up there, but no, Napa and Sonoma dominate that industry worldwide.
I don't know.
So-
Okay, so so we don't have any idea. What are your thoughts? What do you think Putin's going to do? How do you think this resolves?
I don't know. I just hope none of this stuff is real. Unfortunately, the Great Reset with the model thing, there's just too much out there to suggest it's not. And again, Biden spoke about it. As far as Biden or Putin's concerned, I don't know. He lost 7,000 troops to a small country that didn't really have a military, and he's losing to civilians. That doesn't look good, bro. Putin, if you hear us, you may want to rethink your military strategy. But
But what's he going to do? Okay, honestly, we're hypothetical. I know we're at the end of the podcast.
I mean,
we're running
do you
out of
think-
time, but
I don't know. I would hope that he's not going to launch nuclear warfare.
well,
I don't
okay,
think he's bioweapon, but
he can't pull out at this point. I mean, he can, but he won't.
so he's losing
because
7,000 people,
But
and you only have 100,000
pulls-
people in your entire country.
if he pulls out,
Can you look up and see how many's in his military? Sorry. Just in the military.
Russian
Total military soldiers.
well, didn't I was telling you that I was reading articles that he's going to other proxy states and asking for soldiers.
Right.
So
But like is 7,000 half his military?
no, but that's a huge loss.
That's a huge
That's
chunk.
a
Active
huge loss.
personnel
100,000?
is 1 million. 1,014,000.
Oh, so they're
Foot
big, like,
soldiers
kinda-
are probably the majority of that.
they're probably 20-year-old,
Oh,
like 18 young guys. That
yeah.
are-
It's
I mean,
1
Israel
million
does the same thing.
active and then 2 million reserve personnel.
Oh, he's pulling all that.
Yeah.
If he lost 7,000, he's got that much. Why is he going to other countries to draw?
I don't know.
I mean, that's 3 million soldiers.
Again, we're looking on the internet for those numbers. We may not know those numbers.
That's true.
It's not public
But
knowledge.
regardless, 7,000 troops to a country that literally did not have much of an army, and like we haven't sent, I couldn't find anything.
We did. We've sent weapons.
Oh, we sent, but we did not send troops though.
We have not sent troops.
So troops
We've
are not on the
sent,
ground from
We've
the
not
US.
sent planes. I did see this. We sent drones, and somebody went, well, "Wait, isn't that an offensive weapon?" No, it's defensive. We've only done defensive.
This is what I understand.
So we were
Why
talking
isn't-
this like tight line.
Why isn't NATO, which we are part of, and Europe, England, going, hey, we need to protect our NATO ally because Ukraine is part of NATO.
It's not NATO. Ukraine is not a part of NATO.
They're,
and that-
they're
they're-
getting ready to join.
They're
wanna-
trying to.
they-
That's
Oh,
that's
that's
why
what it
we're
was.
not in the war right now. If they were part of NATO, we'd be in the war.
We'd have to be, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They're not a part of NATO, and they're trying to. They got an emergency acceptance to the EU.
But
But-
we're not. I mean, sending. Yeah, I mean, our weapons are legit. Our weapons are probably the greatest thing on the face of the planet. So-
Yeah, we're honestly, I think we just saw $1 billion. We've invested $1 billion in the effort. I think
Oh.
majority of that is humanitarian, food, water, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And then we're sending weapons and drones and that kind of stuff to help them fight.
but no soldiers.
And we
No.
don't send MiGs. Poland was going to send them like jets to help them protect their skies. And they were going to send their jets, and Poland wanted us to pay them for those jets to replace their jets.
We said no.
And we said no. So take that as you may. I don't really know. Well, at some point,
I mean, you could send 2 F-22s, and those F-22s would take out those Russian
MiGs. But would he see that
all day
as a
long.
preemptive for war?
And that may be it.
Because he's already said that if you get involved,
like you said, you don't want to
no fly zone.
You don't want to back even the smartest dog into a corner because they're going to get wild.
They are allies of ours, but do we want to get directly involved in the conflict? And if we get directly involved in the conflict, we're now at war. And if we're at war, you would see a number of our allies go to war, and it essentially would kick off World War III. Alliances would be made. It would just happen. So that's the question: is right now is there an off ramp for Putin to be able to get off of this?
After he takes Ukraine.
After he takes Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. He's not going to stop there, because he's going to believe that all of those states that were part of the USSR belong to Russia. So if he's able to get all, which is what he thought he was going to do. I'm telling you, he thought he was going to be able to march through Ukraine,
like he did
Kiev,
Crimea.
Kiev, take the whole country,
2014
and
goes
just
in,
say it's mine.
This is mine. They were like, you can have it.
Right.
And Ukraine was like,
well,
no.
and if you go back November, he was already warning that this was going to happen. And Biden's like, well, if we see a major thing happen, not a minor, if he crosses a line, like, we won't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't set a red line in the sand, or a line in the sand, and then go, you know what? Let's back it up a little bit. We're just going to back it up a little bit. You go, if you step over the line, I'm going to smack you. And then if he goes across the line, you got to smack him. So the question is they have to believe that we're going to do what we say. And if we don't really say, a good example of this is being a parent, right? I'm a parent.
Right.
If I tell my kid, don't do that, or bad things are going to happen to you, do you think my kid's going to do it? Or if I say, don't do that, or you're going to have this specific consequence, you're going to get a spanking, you're going to get grounded, you're going to get this. I'm telling you, being very specific in what the outcome would be is a lot more effective than being vague. And I think if the United States had come out and said, if you do this, I will slam everything I have at you and I will erase you from the earth. Do you think that he would have? I don't think he would have.
Yeah, I don't know.
But if you cross that line, oh boy, watch my temper. You just watch. Oh, I'm gonna look at you strangely. They're not gonna care.
So, also in June 2021, I just looked this up real quick. The Brussels summit of NATO leaders reiterated the decision taken at the 2008 Bucharest summit that the Ukraine would become a member of the alliance with the membership action plan. So even though maybe it's not into effect yet, because that was just last year. Since 2008, you guys said they're gonna be a part of NATO.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, you're not. Like, you're just sending him food.
Putin gave his. He's willing to stop the war. He gave his proposal last week.
What did he say?
He said he wanted them to change their constitution to say that they've always been a part of Russia. And he wanted them to change their constitution to where they would not be allowed to join any other unions.
This guy's crazy.
And they had to give him like Kyiv or something like that. Like, it was a huge concession. It's not going to happen.
No, just like,
right? There's
the
no
three
way.
things he requested aren't going to happen.
But that's, he doesn't want to see it strengthened. And he definitely doesn't want NATO against his borders. He has no border right now with NATO.
I mean, he helped create that other alliance that NATO joined, and it's part of the North Atlantic.
I heard that one was.
It's NACC. I just forget what it stands for, but they all joined it together, and it was like in 1994, I believe. And that's kind of when it was like peace and, like after the Red Curtain fall and all this. And so even though Russia's not part of NATO, NATO is a part of this NACC, and so is Russia in concordance with peace. So I don't know. There's a whole lot of, again, Putin may just be tripping.
So this is the NATO territory. What's in orange? So we don't border
for the EU.
No,
NATO. This is the NATO territory.
This is the.
So
right, but the U.S. is in NATO.
Yeah, but okay. NATO is in Europe. We may be a part of it, but
I see what you're saying.
We're supporters of NATO.
Understood.
Right? We're a part of NATO as a supporter. But this is actually, you're correct. All the black here is also, or the blue is also people that have joined after or before 1997. So since 1997, all of these people have joined.
Yeah, so pretty much
he's
all
afraid.
Europe.
He's afraid of having border states that are NATO.
Is Ireland not part of NATO?
Is that Ireland or is that Scotland?
No, Scotland's on the left.
Okay, yeah, I guess not.
Oh.
They're doing their own thing, dude. They don't want to
So
worry
Putin
about.
can be like, hey, I'm gonna go take out Mick.
They won't do it.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Anyways, the point is that I think he's afraid of having NATO on his borders. Yeah, that's all I need to know.
Right. So here's Putin like, oh god, they're just getting bigger and bigger and
He's
bigger
not
and bigger
afraid
and bigger
of it,
and bigger.
though.
I don't think it's
If he was
fear.
if it was fear, he wouldn't have gone in.
I don't think it's fear in the sense of like, oh no. I think it's like, oh, no way this bully's gonna go work out at the gym for the next 6 months when I know he's coming after me. I'm gonna go get him now.
You only do that if you think you can get away with it.
He was military, I think,
You only do it if you think you can get away with
and he
it.
worked under Stalin. So
Remember, he's intellectual, right?
yeah,
Smart people don't go into a
There's
fight
a
they don't think they can win.
fine line between intelligence and or genius and insanity too. So
Yeah, but still, the guy thought he
know.
was going to go in quick and hot, take the whole thing, and he figured that the West would do nothing about it.
I think he thought they were gonna bow down, like Crimea.
Well, I maybe bow down. I thought he thought he was going to be able to overthrow him. He threw a lot at them. He wasn't going in with like a few troops. He went with everything he had
Right.
and brought more in.
Yeah.
So
And lost 7,000.
he thought he was just going to overrun everything.
That has got to be a slap in the face.
Here's the thing.
Like, we're gonna
Initially,
get these guys, and they're like, "Brrr."
his plan, and
Kick
he had
back,
talked
sucker.
about, was to take over and then put in proxy Russian leaders in these cities. The flags and all that were going up. You don't bomb civilian cities because there are 1,000 articles. Just look up civilian bombings.
yeah, I'll look it up.
There are towns that are not military based. Not
Right.
all civilians are fighting. I know there's like 4 million right now that are going into Poland.
But
right?
you don't think that had nothing to do with Ukraine? Literally within hours of them attacking, saying we are arming our civilians.
No, because he didn't do it until 2 or 3 weeks
'Cause
in, and he started attacking civilian centers.
Because I saw a thing where Ukraine families were going out, and Ukraine was like, "No, you're a man. Come back. You're a boy.
Yeah, no,
come back
I agree,
and get the girls out." No, I'm not.
but not
saying,
everybody's been able to get out.
right. Like Iraq.
Yeah, you're pissing me off. It's not the same. It's not at all the same. That's different.
Listen, if we don't challenge you, we don't get the pure intellect.
Yeah, but
your
your
intellect comes out
logic-
when you're challenged.
Your logic is making you look
I'm
less
just-
intelligent.
No, I'm just taking the devil's advocate stance. I
Yeah.
really think Putin is a psychotic. I probably shouldn't say too much. He may come kill me. I'm sure he's got infiltrators, and then they're like knocking at the door. Mr. Blitt, you're dead. I don't know.
No, the
I don't
KGB
know
waits for no one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that the second time now.
Yeah, they wouldn't really even knock.
They wouldn't knock
Right.
because they wait. They wait for no one.
Yeah.
One of these days, you're gonna watch that show.
I know. We talk about it so much. I gotta just sit down and binge it. But anyway, I don't know what Putin's plans are. I didn't know he lost 7,000 troops. That's really crippling to a man that
Best
believes
guess.
he's like the best of the best.
I didn't believe it because Ukraine actually said that the 6,000 troops had been killed. I didn't believe it, but then our intelligence backed it up.
How many have they lost? Do we know that?
Ukraine? I don't. I'm sure it's. I'm sure
Real
it's
quick
there.
before we finish.
Let's see.
It's like 1,000. Like, bro.
No, I
I
mean,
mean, his mind is probably like Ukraine is weak. We're gonna rush in there, and these dudes are fighting back with.
well, the problem is, are you going to really even find a
Zeal.
real number? Are you going to find like a true number?
Well, no, so
that's
that's-
the hard part.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm saying we're looking at our intelligence based on, and what they do is they look at a tank and they go, if a tank's been destroyed, I know this many members needed to operate a tank. This many, so they.
no, I'm just talking about propaganda, not like
Well,
how
but-
we get to those numbers.
I know what I'm saying is that I'm trying to look at our intelligence. A lot of the numbers that were coming out originally were coming out of the country. So what I see is about 1,500 members have been lost. Now that number has
from Ukraine.
yes, that number. But again, defensive mechanism is a lot more defensible than offensive,
No, I agree.
right? So if you're in a fort
But again,
or a base or
you're Putin, and you think you are this world power, and you're marching against this tiny little country, and the civilians are whooping your tail, bro.
300,
300 what?
just 300. Like think about it. Like the 300 soldiers, the Spartans, right? Were able to hold off.
Those dudes were Spartans, though.
I agreed.
These weren't
Agreed.
little farmers.
I'm just
and,
saying
like,
the sheer.
mechanics. These
we
were
could-
like the best
Super
of the
soldiers.
best. Like,
yeah.
like they mocked
Okay,
all the rest of the Greeks.
But-
They were like, we are.
that's agreed. Agreed. I just think
That's all they did was train.
But if you're
and
fighting for the cause
fight
is
wars.
different too, right? Where if I was
Yeah.
to say like none of us are trained soldiers, but if somebody showed up and they were going to take over Vacaville, don't you think that we would be fighting with everything in us?
Have you listened to that Ukrainian president speak?
Yeah.
Like that dude is charismatic. And I'm sure his people got fired up when he got on and was like, check this out. We're going to give you guys guns. The U.S. is giving us weapons and we're going to whoop them up. They don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
1,500 versus 7,000. If those numbers are true.
Yeah, the 7,000
Russia?
number comes from American intelligence. I don't see anything from American intelligence on Ukraine. And I don't know. I mean, we're technically allies with them, so we wouldn't want to like bring them down, right?
Yeah,
I don't really know. And I agree with Cody. We really don't know.
We may
If it is 7,000, it's a huge loss in comparison to us and our wars.
Both of those numbers are accurate. And you're Putin. I don't know what's going through his head right now. That's actually scary because he probably thought this was in the bag. I'm going against this weak country. I'm Russia. They're Ukraine. And if those numbers are accurate and he's lost, what is that? 4.5, almost 4.5 times the amount of soldiers that this tiny little country has lost civilians that are and their soldiers. If that is accurate, I mean, this dude does have nukes. Eventually, does he just not give a frick?
That's what I'm saying. Does he just tactically nuke a city and
that's where it gets scary.
Take over?
That's where it gets scary because he's like,
so that was my question. We got to resolve this and we got to we got to
wrap it up.
We got to wrap it up. But that's my question is, if he does, what happens? Does NATO respond? Does the United States respond?
I mean, if he launches nuclear?
If he does a nuclear tactical weapon, I think we would. But if he does, let's say he does chemical weapons. Let's just say it's biological. He hits them with a sarin gas or whatever it was that you were talking about in Kiev and takes the president out and then comes in and takes over the country. What do we do?
If he's got ballistic missiles that can reach us, that means he can reach all of Europe too. Reality. And if these ballistic missiles are armed with biological weapons, he's going to take out a whole lot of countries before we can even launch on him.
So is that a no? You don't do anything?
No, we will launch on him and we will take him out because we don't want him to launch more. But at the end of the day, he's going to get some off.
But do we do that when he's doing this to Ukraine? Right now, we've been very passive, very defensive, very like, oh, hey, they're allies of ours. We're just going to go ahead and send them.
I'd be talking about it for sure because a tyrannical man like that who has lost that many troops is in a place where he's going to get some kind of revenge. He's going to win in his mind somehow because it's all about his perception at this point.
Or he's going to go down trying.
Exactly. You know,
what were you going to say?
I'm just going to say, like, if they use biochemical weapons to take Ukraine, I think something will. But if they just take Ukraine,
that's my question. So I think, does the United States, should we? I don't know what the president's going to do, but should we respond if they were to fire biological weapons on Ukraine? I'm not attacking NATO, not attacking us.
I think
if they were to use biological weapons, or because they're already attacking civilians and we're not doing anything.
And as tyrannical as he is, he's still smart enough to know if he launches biological weapons on a small country, we're going to blow him off the map. So he's not going to launch it on just one country. That's what I'm trying to say. He's going to launch every single ballistic missile he has.
The problem is the messaging has not been clear on that. And up until this point, because we're not clear on our messaging, he has pushed that line. What's to stop him from start using that and doing that and saying, I mean, there seems to like there's no consequence right now.
I can't think a man like that doesn't have an inkling like, hey, if I use biological weapons, which are highly illegal, they're going to blow me up. So he may
think that, but it's not being said, so he can just argue it away.
He's going to launch on England and all of Europe, including Ukraine. He may even try to fire on some on us.
So you don't think he's going to?
I don't think he's going to press the button. No, because he knows he's done. But if he's at a point in his mind where he's done and it's a wrap, and I've been made a fool of across the world, he may. But he's going to launch on a whole lot of countries, not just the Ukraine. Again, one biological weapon on Ukraine, we will launch every Trident submarine nuclear weapon we have on him and wipe out Russia before any more of those can get off. But that's why I'm saying if he's going to press the button, he's going to launch however many he has, probably pretty simultaneously. And I don't think he has it like the U.S., where the U.S. like 4 different people have to code in. I'm sure he probably just has a button in his desk. Like
I don't know. Is there an off ramp for him? Think about it. Russian, we know. Okay, we're spinning wheels right here. But at the end of the day,
if he loses this battle, it's going to be bad.
There's going to be a coup, or the Russian oligarchs are going to kick him out. There's something he will lose himself, right? He'll lose his life or something. But I think that he's going to do something. This is just a belief. I don't know for certain, but I think it's a belief that what's going to happen is he will do something like that.
Yeah.
And if he's able to get away with it, it's a win for him.
It's scary stuff.
Yeah.
We don't know what he's thinking. Nobody can know. Ukraine's fighting a good fight, though. 1,500 to 7,000. If those numbers are accurate, that's a pretty big difference.
That was what it said for day 20. So I think we're at like day 23 or 24. So
When
not
did it
quite
start?
4 weeks,
February
3.5
something?
weeks.
Yeah. Anyways, hey, let us know what you think. This is a pretty big topic across the world right now. So we'd be curious your thoughts on Putin, and is he going to press the button? What will happen if he does? Let us know. As always, we love you, and we are out.
Peace out.